school teachers, but all teachers, with the who have the impression that learning is the imparting of information, and that it's the role of the learners to absorb that and then to spit it back. So that student will never, or that learner will never have the opportunity in a way to think for themselves. Whereas the other teacher who's posing interesting questions, or who creates a culture where where there can be many different perspectives, many different opinions that are all embraced, that is the teacher who is clearing the path in a way for a student to be able to come a thinker and to come to that wisdom on their own.
Okay, good, yes. So oftentimes it takes someone to open up a new reality. And I would say even when it comes to learning, I know this is certainly true with Jewish learning, with Torah learning, is that Torah could be learned on multiple levels. And one might not know, one may completely not be aware of a certain way of studying, a way of looking at things, not just the specific information, but an entire pathway of how to learn. And I don't just mean in general to be open to learning. I mean a specific way of looking at things that a student in Hebrew, in Talmudic studies, or in other forms of Jewish study, it's called a derech halimud. A derech halimud, a is an English word, derech halimud, derech means a way, and limud means study. So derech halimud means a path or a way of study. There are different ways in which one can study Torah, different ways in which one can study the Talmud. In other words, there are different approaches as to how you study. Not just what you're studying, but how you study it.
And then the key then, though, is that you take that pathway, or you take that how, and then you make it your own. So that the teacher has introduced you to that way, but then you're going to pursue that study, and the knowledge that or the wisdom that you will gain through that pathway is it's your own, in a way, personal signature, or it's your way of being in that pathway. So that pathway isn't necessarily completely scripted. It's a framework, but yet then as you engage with that, you make that your own. It becomes your own. The wisdom is within you. The teacher is providing the pathway. There's a very simple graphic that I know there's other educators, I think, on by Lev Vygotsky, and it's just called the zone of proximal development. And it's two overlapping circles. And so at the edge of one circle is the teacher, at the edge of the other is the student. And that centerpiece where they come together is where the learning occurs, but then they separate. So the student takes what they have, the opportunities they've had for learning, and they make it their own.
Right. Good, yes. And that is, hopefully all teachers are doing that. So teaching is a process by which the teacher is giving not only wisdom, but the ability to be a learner, right? To be someone who learns, and that gift is given, hopefully, imparted or revealed, or whatever, however we refer to it, to the student. Now the student has that. The teacher can go away, as you said. Those two circles can part ways. The student is now a learner. Hopefully, ideally, the student is now a learner, which tells us that wisdom is something that works from the inside out, as opposed to light, which works from the outside in. So the divine name, Havaya, getting back to the supernal realms and getting back to the secrets of creation. The name Havaya, the divine name Yud-Kei Vav-Kei, the four-letter name of God, indicates a reality that operates from the outside in. It's too big, it's too lofty, it's too transcendent, it's too infinite to operate on the inside. It's too big. The name Elokim, on the other hand, is the divine name that operates from the inside out, within each and every creation, within each and every being, to give it life on its terms, the way it is, the way it needs. Which is why one might say there are many Elokims. Now, I'm not trying to be blasphemous here. I don't mean there are many gods. But if Elokim is the divine life force that goes inside of every single creature, then yes, there are different life forces that are symbolized by the name Elokim, which is why Elokim is plural. The divine name Elokim, as we said last week and the week before, is a name that in Hebrew is a plural term, because there are many life forces that are enlivening many different creatures. In fact, billions, even just people, there are billions of people now, right? Now, I mean for the last little bit, right? So people are in the billions. What about all the animals? What about all the birds? And what about all the fish? And what about all the trees? And like I like to say every week, every single blade of grass. The Talmud says, there is no blade of grass that grows without a mazel, without an angel above that hits it and says, grow. I don't believe it's a literal striking, but it means that there's some sort of mazal, some sort of constellation, some sort of divine energy angel that is empowering it from the inside. Every single life form, if it's alive. And when I say alive, I don't only mean the things that demonstrate life, things that grow or move, but even a rock. The Arizal, the great Ari, the holy Rabbi Yitzchak Luria, the Kabbalist from Safed from the 1500s. He says famously, the father of Lurian Kabbalah, in case you're wondering, right? Isaac Luria. So the Arizal says that even a rock, an even domain, a still rock, a rock that doesn't reveal any sort of life or vitality. It doesn't move, it doesn't talk, it doesn't stretch, it doesn't grow, nothing, no movement. It seems dead. The rock seems dead. Inanimate life. It's not animated. Is there a soul? The Arizal says, are you kidding me? Does it exist? If it exists, there's a soul. What do you mean? How can something exist without having a soul? So even a stone has a soul. Everything has a soul, but everyone's soul is different. The soul of a stone is different than the soul of a tree. Why? Right? A stone does its thing, and a tree does its thing. Each thing has its purpose. Each thing has its own specific function, has its own identity, has its own reality, its own way of being, as different from the other. And each one therefore has its own. So last week we said not only does every category of life have its own soul, but each individual member of that life, of that category of life, has its own soul. So when it comes to animals, we said this last week. I think it's remarkable, but we had it in our discourse. We said last week that each animal of the same type of animal has its own specific divine life force, right? Not all dogs are enlivened with the same soul. Maybe it seems obvious, but I think it's kind of cool that we have a Kabbalistic text that says it straight up. Yeah, many cows in the field. Each cow has its own soul. And therefore, since the souls, as we said last week, since every soul is informed by certain divine letters, and we took a deep dive into this last week, every animal has its own unique combination of divine letters, divine energy. Its own particular spiritual DNA, if you will. Not just by category of life, all cows, all giraffes, all cats, all dogs. No, every member of that family has its own specific, unique energy, unique name, unique life force. Obviously, with people, it's the same thing. I mean, maybe it's more. I said obviously. I think it's more obvious, at least because we operate in that space, and we know that we're different than the other person. We know that no other person on this planet who's ever roamed this earth is exactly like us. We know that no one who's ever walked this beautiful earth has had the same experiences, teaching, education, opportunities, social circle, parental influence, etc. as we have. Everyone's walking a unique path in life, unrepeated throughout history. Not in the past and not in the future. Each one of us has a unique soul. And so the point is that where does all this life come from? All this unique life. A soul, so many different souls. Think about it. How many different souls are powering all? Batteries not included. They used to say that, by the way. Remember, batteries not included. Now it's a given. Of course your batteries are not included. Get your own batteries. It's like, what do you think we're going to give you batteries? Well, we're going to make it for you. It's like IKEA. What, we're going to build it for you also? Come on, get your own batteries and start building. You know, IKEA opened up a restaurant. You know this, right? IKEA opened up a restaurant. Apparently you go there and they give you all the ingredients and they tell you to cook it. That was a joke. Anyway, so here's the point. Right,
laughing.
when it comes, huh?
I said laughing.
Laughing. Okay, good. Good. At least we're all there. Okay, I don't mean all there. I mean like, okay. Now, here's the deal when it comes to batteries. You have many different devices. You have, let's say, a remote control, and you have you have like a television remote control, television remote, and then you have, let's say, a remote control car for the kids, and you have a portable radio, right? You have all these different things. And let's say they all take AA batteries. Standard AA batteries. You can go alkaline. You know, alkaline batteries? That's a thing, yes? Yes, alkaline. When I was a kid, that's all. Alkaline was batteries. Now they put alkaline in the water. I'm just saying. Back in the day, it was dangerous to, alkaline, who knows. But now it's a shtick. I'm kidding. I don't know. Or I'm not kidding. Electrolytes, who knows. Battery charged water. Trader Joe's, it says it has a lot of alkaline in it. I'm not sure what's going on. I digress. Getting back. So you can use alkaline, you can use lithium batteries, rechargeable batteries, whatever it is, but AA is AA batteries, and that's the thing. Now, a person might say, look, souls are like the same thing. A soul is like a battery pack. So whether it's going into this person or that person, or whether it's going to a person or an animal, or whether it's going to a person, an animal, a bird, a fish, a tree. Batteries are batteries, souls are souls. It's like a battery, no big deal. Maybe, you have AAA and AA and C and D batteries. Maybe a few different levels of batteries. But otherwise, they're pretty standard plug and play. Pull one out from one, pop it in the other. We learned last week, again, I'm just trying to emphasize what we learned together, that it's not the case with souls. Souls are not interchangeable. The divine life force, the power is one cow, cannot just be pulled out and put into a different cow. It's a completely different energy. It's not like cows are running on C batteries. C for cow, obviously. Right? So, listen, if it's not working for Bessie, or whatever it is, right, we're going to pull it out, and it's the same soul. Like all cows have the same, it's like C batteries. That's it, C souls. That's not the case. Every animal, every cow has its own name, its own divine life force. That's Elokim. Elokim is the divine is divine reality that works from the inside out on the level of each individual creature. And what about Havaya? Oh, Havaya Echad. Havaya is one, beyond all the diversity. Havaya is not getting involved with the nitty-gritty of creation. Havaya is not getting involved with the specifics of heaven and earth and light and darkness, right? And sea and dry land. And it's not getting involved with the birds and the sky and the fish and the sea and the animals on the earth and creepy crawly insects and human beings. It's not getting involved in that. Hashem Echad, God is one beyond all of this diversity. So you have the divine energy of oneness, transcendence, Havaya, removed from creation of this diverse planet that we find ourselves on. And then you have Elokim, and Elokim is very much about diversity. And Elokim is the name of creation. Bereshit, bara Elokim, in the beginning. Who created? Elokim. And what did Elokim create? All of the stuff that you see here, because Elokim is the divine life force that goes inside of everything. Today, we are going to strongly challenge everything I just said. We're going to strongly challenge everything that we've said the last few weeks. We've tried to draw a line, very binary. Havaya is this, Elokim is that. Havaya is one, beyond distinction, beyond creation. Elokim is creation and creation of diversity. Two different names. It's very clean in the mind. The mind keeps it very clean. But the truth is not so simple. The truth is a little bit more complicated. Because it turns out that creation does not really emanate from Elohim. When I say creation, I mean creation of diversity, i.e. this, all this, does not really emanate from Elohim. It really emanates from Havaya. And Havaya is one, and that's going to create a bit of a challenge. So, I think right now I'm ready to jump in. I'm going to take a break soon, or pause for a moment, and talk about the difference between dry land or Alma de Iskalia and Alma de Iskasia, the revealed worlds and the hidden worlds. We'll talk about that soon. And in doing so, we'll talk about terrestrial land and the sea, and the monkey wrench into everything that we've said up until now in distinguishing between the two names of God. Okay, we are up to chapter 19, and I'm about to share my screen. So take a look. Tell me if you can see this. Yes? Unmute yourself or tell me yes if yes?
Not yet. Not yet.
Yes, I can see it.
Okay, good.
Says you're sharing your screen, but there's nothing that's up there.
I can see it.
I haven't seen anybody live on here.
No?
I can see it.
Yeah, I can't see it either.
I can't see anyone live. I have not seen you live.
Oh, wow. Okay. It seems to be the Zoom issues are still following me even with a restart.
But if folks go on to gallery view just to try it and see if they can get anyone.
That doesn't work either.
No?
No?
Well, that's weird because I can see the text, but I can't see you anymore, so I can see one or the other.
Oh, and I can't see the text at all.
Or you.
Interesting.
Right, I'll listen.
Okay, listen, I think we're going to do the best we can. So just for those of you that can see, so you can see. For those of you that can't see, you'll have to take my word for it that I'm reading from this text, and hopefully I'll do a good enough job of reading it clearly and also explaining it so that it's all going to make sense. And hopefully by next time, I don't know, the issues sort themselves out. Okay, so let me jump in. This is chapter 19. And I'm going to read a little bit, and then I'm going to explain, because this is really important. You know, so often we like things that wrap up very nicely. You know, we like things that tie up very neatly. And when I say that, I mean we like a binary, black and white type of differentiation. Like, okay, this is A and this is B. Each thing is different. Now I have clarity. It's good. We like having clarity. We like putting things in boxes. Havaya is one, and Elohim is plurality. Yeah, we like that type of clarity and distinction. But the truth is not always so clear. The truth is not always as clear as we would perhaps like. So, here we go. Chapter 19. This premise. The premise that there is no differentiation in the name Havaya. In other words, that Havaya is one, and you don't have plurality when it comes to the name Havaya. That premise is not yet clear. When he says it's not yet clear, he means it's really not clear at all. Why? For it is known that the ultimate source of creation is the name Havaya. We just spent an entire chapter 18, explaining how the diversity of creation stems from the name Elohim, the name of God that represents plurality. And now we're saying, by the way, not so fast, the ultimate source of creation is not Elohim. It's actually the name Havaya, the force of God that's known as Havaya, the Yud Kei Vav Kei, the four-letter name of God. He continues inside. Although creation occurs directly through the name Elohim, the true source of creation is the name Havaya. In other words, creation may filter through Elohim, but the source of creation is Havaya. trying to think of a good parallel, a good way to explain this. You know, you can have, I think I have a good analogy for this. Imagine it's a very bright sunny day. It's a very bright sunny day, and you are inside your house, and you have stained glass windows. Let's just say you have stained glass windows, or a window that's of a different color. It's not just transparent, clear, right? It's, let's say, green or red or blue or yellow, some sort of tinted glass.
Maybe like a prism even.
Or a prism, even better. Yeah, or prism. And the light is shining. Yeah, and the light is shining, hits the glass, and now you see light on the other side. Light that's coming out with different colors. Maybe it's one color, or maybe it's different colors. Whatever it is, now suddenly you have all of this light. In my house, our front door and our back door has, I don't know what you would call it, some sort of design in the glass. I don't know, some sort of design. And depending on the time of day, sometimes when the light shines in, it reflects, it does some sort of prism action, like Adam said. And on my kitchen floor, I can see a rainbow. And the kids love it. They love looking at the little rainbow of light that's on our kitchen floor. Okay, so the light's coming in, and then it's hitting the glass, and on the other side, it's looking like something else. Okay, that is an example of how you have. Okay, so let's before I get to the analog, let's continue in the analogy here. So in that scenario, let's say I have that rainbow on the kitchen floor. Yeah. So let me stick with one color. Let's stick with my original example of stained glass. Let's say you have a green window. The light shines through that window, and now on the inside of the house, it is green. Or you know what? Another example. Let's talk about a colored light bulb. You ever see those light bulbs, instead of being, instead of having like a clear case or a frosted case, it's got a color to it. It's got a tint. It's a blue light, it's a red light, it's a black light, whatever it is. Yeah, different colors. So let's say let's go with green. Let's just stick with green today. Yeah, so you have the light, which is just light, whatever color that is, but it's light, right? And then you have the green glass or the green filter, and the way the light shines through that on the other side, it looks like green light. Now the green wasn't necessarily the original color. Now I know that pure light has all potential colors inside of it, fine. But that green, it's not what you saw on the other side. There we would call it pure light. On this side you now have the green light. So what's going on? The light is hitting the green glass. On the other side, shining through that. And on this side of the glass, you're seeing the green. On the other side, you don't see it. On this side, you see it. The light on this side is really a combination of two things. The filter and the light. So, and each one is a necessary component to have what you have right now. You know what? Let's go even better. Let's say you wanted green light. It's not just an accident. Let's say you want, for whatever reason, you want green light shining in your house. You want a green halo. You want a green ambiance. You want a green aura. So what do? You put up a green glass or green filter. You let the light shine through. You got your green light. Hold on. Let's break it down. Take away the light. Take away the light, the source of light. Take away the light. Do you have the green light inside your house? Do you need both elements? Yes. But here's the question. Which one is actually emanating the light? Which one is the projection of light? The light or the filter? The light. In other words, which is the primary and which is the secondary? The primary element here is the light itself. The light is that which is shining through. It's just in order to have the green glow, you need to have the filter, the green lens, or the green filter, or the green glass in between. So what I'm saying makes sense? Yes? Ish?
Yes.
Okay. So what we have here is really the product of two distinct realities. You have the reality of the light, and then you have the reality of the filter. But the light that comes through, even though it looks green, ultimately the power of the light is the light itself, it's not the green. Because take away the light, right, at night, for example, yeah, let's say no moon, no sun, no source of light outside, nothing, and you have that green glass on your window, you're not going to get any green glow inside your house. Because the green itself is not the source of that light. It's the lens through which the light passes in order to create the light to look in a certain way, but it's not the actual source of light itself. Now, this is a very imperfect example. When I say imperfect, because I'm sure we can find flaws in it, which I haven't yet thought through, but I'm using this as somewhat of a crude example or crude analogy to what we're saying here at the opening of chapter 19. You know, last week we made it sound like Elohim is the source of creation of diversity. Where does all this differentiation come from on planet Earth, or in the universe at large, or in the galaxy? All of these different beings and creatures and entities and existences, where do they all come from? They all have a divine life force, and all of that is what we call Elohim. Elohim is the source of all this diversity. And today we're saying, are you kidding me? Elohim is the source. Havaya is the source. Elohim is just the filter. It's not the source. A filter doesn't create. A filter is what diffuses or what refracts the light or the life force, using the prism analogy that Adam mentioned before.
We can maybe try to turn it up a little bit. I'm not sure. You know.
So here's the deal.
Oh.
Here's the deal. What we're saying here is that you have realities that exist. And when I say realities, you have realities that are very diverse. And the question is, where are they coming from? And the answer is, they're coming from a source of life. Well, what is the source of life? The source of life is not the filter, it's the light. Again, the light in your room, even if it's green, is coming from the sun. Right? The sun is shining through your window. Your window happens to be green, and therefore the glass happens to be green, and therefore there's a green light inside your room. But what's the source of the light? That doesn't change. In a similar sense, he's saying here that although, again, I'm going to read this inside. For those of you that can see it, you see it. For those of you that can't see it, you'll just listen to me say it. Although creation occurs directly through the name Elohim, the true source of creation is the name Havaya. That is the critical line. If I were to rephrase this in our analogy, I would say, although the creation of the green light in your room occurs through the green lens or filter or glass, nonetheless, the true source of the light is the sun. And that would be a correct statement. The sun is the sun. The sun is what is emanating the light. The fact that the light looks green, yes, it's because it passed through a filter, it passed through a screen, it passed through some sort of green lens, green glass. That's true. But just green glass itself is not going to produce green light. You need light. And then you need the green filter. Let's continue inside.
Rabbi, before you do that, can you just use that example again? You referred to diverse realities, and I think I know where you were talking about, but use that example. In the diverse realities, might it be the time of day or the
Well,
so that
let's
the
talk
projection.
about like Adam said before, like a prism, or like
Right.
what the way I started. You might have a stained glass. So you have this. You have the light source, and then it's being refracted through some sort of lens, filter, whatever, and it's producing a diversity of colors, a rainbow of colors, a diversity of different refractions, different colors, different shapes. Think of a kaleidoscope, right? Where you're looking toward the light, but you have that lens, and it's kind of creating all of these. Well, you also have something else inside, another element, but whatever. It's creating all of this, this kaleidoscope.
Is the difference in the realities though also in the eyes of the beholder in a way, so
Yes.
that
Yeah.
there is what's happening, but three people are looking at it and seeing something different. Is that sort of the intersection then between the macro and the micro in a way?
So it's possible that we could say that, but I think even if we say that it's in an objective sense, that objectively, what we're dealing with here are different realities that are being born. In other words, that are being created from the lens or the filter or the refraction of the name Elokim. All of that could be true. In other words, there are objectively different realities. A tree is not a flower, is not an animal, is not a person, right? Everything is different. And it's not just that we see it as different, but on some level of reality, they're different realities. They're different entities, different beings. And where is that diversity coming from? We said Elokim. But today we're saying the source is not Elokim, the source is Havaya. Elokim is just that lens, or just that prism that refracts and differentiates, but the true power is Havaya. So, like this. The stained glass window or the prism, right? Those are not the source of light. They will kick into action once you have a source of light, let's say the sun, passing through it or interacting with it. Then they do their thing. But you need the light. The same thing is true with creation. You have again, I'm using a it's an imperfect analogy, obviously. But you have good morning. You have Havaya, which is like the sun, Elokim, which is like the filter, right? And it's through this combination, through this tag team effort, that you have the creation of plurality. Because plurality comes from Elokim, but creation comes from Havaya. You can have all the Elokim in the world, right? That's all the refraction, that's all the differentiation, but without the power of Havaya, you don't have the rise of existence. You need that power, that energy of the source of life in order for Havaya to work. That's why he says here, again, creation, although creation occurs directly through the name Elokim, Mahava in Hebrew means creator. In other words, who is the creator? Not Elokim. Havaya is the creator. Creation through the name Elokim actually stems from the light Havaya, which is revealed through it. For Havaya and Elokim are one. And he says, again, similar to the example that I'm giving, creation through Elokim is stemming from the light of Havaya, just like the creation of the green light or the green aura in your room, in your house, is coming through the green tint on your windows, but stemming from the light of the sun. So therefore, Havaya and Elokim are one. These two names of God work in tandem. One is the light, one is the filter. Light passing through filter equals this reality that we know and love. Now, here's the big payoff though. So we just explained a little bit more details about the mechanics of creation. But now we jump into something really important. This being the case, it would seem that all the different things which have come into being necessarily already exist in some form within the name Havaya. Now this is something that's not in the analogy, and this is something that we need to focus on for just a moment. What he's saying here is, if Havaya, working through Elokim, the name Havaya, which is that, like the light, working through the name Elokim, which is the lens, right, or the layer of refraction, if that produces all the diverse things, all the different things that come into being, then you have to say that somewhere within the source, there's already that differentiation. And now I go back to the prism example, because that is now the more accurate example. So what happens when the light shines through the prism? And the prism refracts the light. And now you see a kaleidoscope. Or now you see a rainbow of colors. I now go back to my kitchen example. Yeah? The window, the glass window of my kitchen door is not tinted. There's no color in it. Just, it's beveled. It's angled at certain angles. And because of the beveling of the glass, because of the angle of that glass, when the light hits it at a certain angle, the light on the other side reveals a rainbow of colors. And the question is, where did that rainbow of colors come from? And you know what the answer is? All of those colors existed in the pure light from the sun that looked clear, or that just looked like light, without seeing the distinction of the different colors. All of those colors existed in the pure light. It's just you couldn't see it until it hit that point of refraction. Turns out that all the diversity is really sourced where? In the original light itself. Which in our spiritual context means that all the diversity and differentiation of creation does not come from Elokim. In fact, it comes from Havaya. In the name Havaya, in the divine force that we know as Havaya, there's already differentiation. It's just not revealed and manifest and opened for the other to see, so to speak. But inside of it itself, there's already the notion of differentiation. Okay, let me check in with all y'all. Does what I just said make sense?
Yeah, makes perfect sense. It's like an unmanifest potential. Yeah.
Correct. It's an unmanifest potential, but that potential exists. And what potential are we talking about? The potential of diversity within creation. Not just creation, but creation in a differentiated way, in a diverse way. All of that is actually stemming from Havaya, not Elokim. Elokim is just the big reveal. Elokim is just what makes it obvious. You should know, what was Havaya carrying all this time? All y'all, it was carrying all of this diversity. When you looked at a Havaya, you didn't see it, but you should know inside of it was all this diversity. It's the prism. It's like the light of the sun. You walk outside. Actually, I'm looking outside my dining room window right now, and it looks like a nice sunny day. You walk outside, and you don't have to look at the sun even. You're benefiting from the light. What color is the light? It's kind of clear. Yeah, I could see my hand. So it's a clear light. I don't see any colors on my hand. Right? I don't see any. There's no rainbow, a kaleidoscope of colors on my hand. It's just pure. It's just
term, the clear light.
It's just,
Buddhists use that same exact term, clear light.
It's just clear. Yeah, exactly. It's just clear light. And yet,
I have my microphone on.
And yet, I put in a prism. I put in some sort of way to refract the light. Yeah, some sort of glass that has a beveling to it. And the next thing you know, I can see all this wonderful display of colors. They weren't created by the glass. The colors all existed. The spectrum of the entire full spectrum of colors existed in that clear light. The clear light had all of the colors inside of it, but in a way of potential and not in a way of actual. When I say potential and actual, I mean, was it revealed to the eye or not? It wasn't revealed. Until it hits the prism, it's not revealed. Once it hits the prism, now it's obvious and revealed. Havaya, we're now saying in chapter 19, different than what we said in 18. Now we're saying in chapter 19, you should know, the name Havaya has within it the entire realm of existence, diversity, differentiation. It has all of the details inside of it. Elokim is what makes it revealed, is what makes it obvious. So now the question is, what does it mean that we say that Havaya is one? Havaya is not so one. Havaya is also diverse. You see, last week and the week before we explained very easy. We had different buckets. Havaya is the oneness bucket, and Elokim is the diversity bucket. And now we're upending the buckets and saying, who told you that there are different buckets? There are different categories. Yet one is, this name of God is oneness, and that name of God is diversity or differentiation. Not so. Even the name Havaya, which you're telling me is one and no differentiation, the differentiation of course is coming from Havaya, because that's the source of everything. And the source had to have had the differentiation within it, for otherwise, where did it come from? If there's no potential for differentiation in the source, then Elokim does not have the power to make that be. Elokim is not a power of creation of something new. It's just revealing that potential which already was, but the potential was in Havaya. If that's the case, what does it mean that Hashem Echad, Havaya is one? Havaya is also plural. Havaya is also plurality. Havaya is also understanding that we've developed thus far. As he says beautifully in a rhetorical way, if this were not the case, if the diversity did not exist within the name Havaya, then from where did they proceed? Then where does it come from if it's not an Havaya? For Havaya is their true source. So that's point number one. Point number one is in kind of deconstructing, tearing down the walls that we built between Havaya and Elokim. We had it very clear up until now. Havaya was one, Elokim was many. We have the oneness of God, and we have God's ability to create diversity. And now we're attacking that premise. The ability to create diversity does not come from Elokim, it comes from Havaya. That which you called one before is actually the source of plurality. Let's continue, and he deepens the question. We're about to get to SeaWorld, don't worry, we're going to get there.
Rabbi, can
Yes.
I ask a question?
Sure.
Yeah. So I just want to try to reconnect this to the way that you began about the purpose of Kabbalah and then also the pathways. It seems to me that what you're presenting isn't just two alternative interpretations, but there is a reason for beginning by looking at them as buckets, and now the next is deconstructing them. Can you just sort of talk about that just a little bit in terms of it seems like it's a pathway of study that that you present one and then another, and that, or another view, and that this just isn't a coincidence in Kabbalah, but there's an intention to it.
Yeah. Thank you for asking that question, Sandy. One of the most, and by the way, this is, as you said, a pathway of thinking, a way to look at the world, and a way to create a certain way of seeing the world around us. It's very important, very powerful. Very often in Kabbalistic works, especially Kabbalah as seen through the lens of Chabad Hasidic philosophy, which Chabad, as you may know, Chabad stands for Chachma, Bina, and Das, which is the intellectual pathway of understanding Kabbalah. Kabbalah could be studied as kind of a transcendent experience where it doesn't really make sense to the human mind, but it's something that we kind of intellectually accept, as something that's just beyond our understanding. Chabad, the whole role of Chabad philosophy sought to turn Kabbalah into something that we can comprehend, to something that we can logically understand. Now, part of that is to refine the mind, because otherwise Kabbalah just touches the soul and lifts us up, which is good, but it doesn't refine the human mind. And that, in my opinion, and in the language of Kabbalah, that is the final frontier of human development. it's not just developing the mind, but creating a divine influence inside the mind, because the mind is on many levels the most dangerous of the human reality. The mind is the most dangerous. It can lead a person down the most destructive paths. The mind can rationalize anything. So the mind is the final frontier and the ultimate frontier for refinement. And that's why Kabbalah is meant to be understood in the mind, in the human mind, to refine the brain from the inside out. So that's why ways of thinking Kabbalistically are very important. It's not just to know Kabbalah, but how Kabbalah thinks. And I think Sandy is pointing out very accurately that a certain way that Kabbalah encourages us to think, which is we start off with 1, and then we contrast that with 2, and then we reach to a higher place. Now, before I get to that higher place, I need to explain. The 1 is deep. The 2 is even more deep, and now it's complex, right? 1, you explain something well, a Kabbalistic concept, you explain it very well. And then you pull a fast one, you're like, wait a second, then there's this other idea which is completely different, and now you have to hold in your head 2 different ideas and compare and contrast and understand how each one works, how each system works. And that requires a lot of brain, a lot of focus, and a lot of brain power. And then Kabbalah gets to the ultimate, which is a deconstructing of the binary, saying that all that you thought that there was 1 and 2, there's a higher reality in which 1 is not 1 and 2 is not 2, but there's a reality called 3 that fuses the 2 together, or that exists in a way that the 2 aren't actually 2 but are actually 1. You'll find this very, very often in Kabbalistic and Hasidic literature, that the process goes 1, 2, 3. It's a 1, 2, 3 process. 1, 2, which is diversity, and then 3, which is that kind of that oneness or that deconstruction of the binary construct. And it's in that place where the 2 combine that the truth is usually found. In other words, the deepest truths are usually found on that 3 level, because that is where we get truly essential, truly beyond the binary. As long as you have a duality, you're usually not hitting the pure divine essence. So the 3 is really where the magic is. That's a way of thinking. So it's a, in each study, it on that level it means something else. Like now we have like Havaya is 1, Elokim is 2, and today we're trying to break those down and reach a higher dimension, which we'll get to soon or at some point. So in this case, it's a specific area of study, but you'll find this throughout Kabbalistic literature, this notion of 1, 2, 3. Okay, but let's jump back in. So what we're saying is that Havaya, don't box Havaya into this oneness and transcendence beyond differentiation and beyond creation. It's not so true. And don't say Elokim is diversity and the source of creation. That's also not true. It's not so simple. Everything is coming ultimately from Havaya. It is written, moreover, let them praise the name of Havaya, for he commanded and they were created. It says, I'm going to read the Hebrew, Yahalu Hashem Havaya, Kihu Tzilo V'nivro. Praise the name, it says literally, praise the name Havaya, for he commanded and they were created. Creation is coming from Havaya. We thus see back inside that creation originates in the name Havaya itself. That is, the spontaneous mode of creation that brings forth the hidden worlds that were not revealed. Hence, and I'm going to explain all this, I just want to read a little bit more and then I'm going to backtrack and explain SeaWorld. I'm going to get there in a second. Hence, significantly, the final verb in the above quoted verse, v'nivra'u, appears in the passive tense, they were created. By contrast, the verse in the active sense that states in the beginning, Elokim created, refers to the name Elokim as the activating force in the physical creations, the creations of the revealed worlds. These matters are well known and are explained elsewhere. Let me explain. There are in Kabbalah, it speaks of revealed worlds and it speaks of hidden worlds. Let's start with the analogy. let's start with the classic analogy of dry land and the sea or the ocean. What is the difference between the dry land and the sea? The difference is when you look out on the dry land, you can see what is there. When you look at the sea, you don't see what's there. Very simple. When I walk out into the plane, not the airplane, when I walk out into a flat area, the savannah, right? I look out, animals, and I see crops growing. I see all wonderful, beautiful things. I see houses, farmhouses, and silos. Mazel tov. I stand at the beach, and I look out onto the ocean. Yeah, and I look at the landscape, so to speak, to mix metaphors. I look at the landscape of the ocean. What do I see? Water. I see garnished. I see nothing. I don't see what lies beneath. And I know what you might be thinking. Well, if the water is crystal clear and I look down, I may be able to see through the water. Yeah, that's true. But only in that area. But look out at a larger surface area of the water, and you'll just see the surface. What's inside the sea is fundamentally hidden. It says in the Talmud, whatever exists in dry land also exists in the sea. Just like dry land has mountains and valleys, the sea also has mountains and valleys. And when I say sea, by the way, I mean the ocean as well. I don't mean specifically sea versus ocean versus lake versus river. Water, right? Things that are covered in water. Just like dry land has mountains and valleys, the sea and the ocean also has that. Just like there's life, vegetation life on dry land, there's vegetation under the water. Just like there's animate objects that move, that breathe above the surface of the earth, so too beneath the surface of the water also teems with life. If anybody's been scuba diving, or even if not scuba diving, if you've ever watched, I don't know, an IMAX or Discovery Channel or whatever it is, and you've seen what exists in the depths of the ocean, it's tremendous. The amount of, beauty in the plants, the coral reefs, whatever, the plants that grow underwater. The animals, the fish, the teeming with life. It's incredible. And yet, you can stand there on the outside looking at the water and not see any of it until you jump in. So Kabbalah uses these two states of life on planet Earth. Not in a different realm of existence. On planet Earth, there's dry land, and then there's the sea. Right? Two realities that we can relate to. Kabbalah uses these two realities as parables or analogies for the realms of the spirit. There are realities that are considered to be dry land. When you look at them, you see them. It's obvious, it's clear. Here's a being, here's an animal, here's a plant, here's a mountain, here's a valley. You don't see anything but the thing itself. This refers to the lower world, the world of Asiyah, the world of action, which is the world that we inhabit. It's a world in which when you look around, you see creation, you see existence. But then there are spiritual realms. Realms in which when you look at them, you don't see them, you see the source of their life. Just like when it comes to sea life. The fish, they breathe in the water. They are able to breathe, not only able to breathe, their only ability to breathe is in the water. You take a fish out of the water, and the fish dies. And the question is, well, what's the problem? If a fish needs oxygen, we got plenty of oxygen right here. Yeah? Join us on dry land. Got all the oxygen in the world. You don't have to be underwater. That's ridiculous. You put us under the water, we can't breathe. You take them out of the water, they can't breathe. What's going on? It doesn't make any sense. Kabbalah says that here's the deal. The reality of sea life is such that the creations are not obvious, but the source of their life is obvious. This is what we call hidden reality or hidden creations. Creations that don't appear obviously differentiated from their source. Elements that don't appear to be obviously distinct from their source, but rather subsumed within the reality or the fabric of their creator. That's what we know as Alma de Iskasia, the hidden worlds. The hidden worlds are worlds in which what's obvious is the source, and what's not obvious is the creation itself. These are creations that don't see themselves as separate entities. Creations that if you would look at them, they would speak their creator and not themselves. There's no ego, there's only source, there's only creator. This is the reality of what we call Alma de Iskasia, the hidden realm. What is Alma de Iskalia, the revealed realm? Alma de Iskalia, the revealed realm, are those realities in which you look at them and you say, yeah, they exist. I don't actually see the source, I just see them. It's like dry land where you see the stuff and you don't see the source. Yeah, I know. I see the stuff inside. This is the analogy for the distinction between the spiritual realms and the revealed realms. Now, if you are on the inside, if you exist in the hidden realms, like I said a moment ago, you don't see yourself as separate from your source. You see the source as all, and you see yourself just as an extension of your source. If you exist in the revealed worlds, you see yourself as the be-all and end-all. You see yourself as the source, and you can imagine a God or a source as a theoretical once upon a time, or first cause or prime mover, but something that is way beyond anything that you might be able to relate to in the here and now. This is the polarization or the polar opposite realities that exist or of the hidden world, the hidden realm, and the revealed realm. So again, in very clear terms, Kabbalah refers to the spiritual dimension, spiritual realities, as the hidden worlds, worlds in which the beings of the world are not so apparent, but the source is apparent. And Kabbalah speaks to revealed worlds, worlds in which the source is not so apparent, but our existence is very apparent. This is how these two realities are diametrically opposed, the hidden and the revealed. By the way, where are the hidden realms? Right around us. I alluded to this in the email that I wrote on Friday. The hidden worlds are right around us. They're not some sort of spiritual dimension that exists in some other planet. They exist right around us. But guess what? They're hidden. We don't see them because they're so source-based that they look like source, but we don't see source, so we don't see source, and we don't see them either. But the bottom line is, hidden realms refers to those creatures that are less present, more source-oriented. Revealed worlds are worlds in which they're more creation-oriented, i.e. us, ego, we exist, and the source is an enigma. Let's go back inside our text and wrap it up for today. He says, now in the creations of the hidden worlds, there is great particularization and differentiation. As is written, whatever exists in the dry land, the revealed worlds exist in the sea, the hidden worlds. And this extreme particularization is brought into being by the name Havaya. And now he drops another dagger on us, on our conversation. Right? We talked about revealed worlds, which are the physical reality, which is the physical reality. And we talked about hidden worlds, which is the spiritual reality, which is a reality in which you don't see existence, but you see the source. Great. But guess what the Talmud says? I mentioned it before. All the diversity that exists on dry land also exists in the sea. Just like you have mountains and valleys and vegetation and animals and life, teeming with life on dry land, you have this same reality under the ocean or under the surface of the sea. Which means that even in the hidden worlds, spiritually now, let's talk about the hidden sea world, right? Or the spiritual sea world. Even in the hidden realms of reality, the spiritual realities that recognize source, not self, those realms which stem from Havaya, Because Havaya is so divine, it creates hidden worlds, worlds that are in touch with their creator. Nonetheless, there's tremendous diversity there. The diversity doesn't just emerge in the physical reality. That diversity begins in the spiritual realms, in the hidden realms. Just like the sea is teeming with life, the hidden realms are also teeming with life. Which means that Havaya is not as one as we might have thought based on last week's conversation or 2 weeks ago conversation. Havaya is really also diverse. There's diversity of creation, particularization, differentiation comes from the name Havaya, in which, therefore, which brings us to the question, what does it mean when we say Havaya is one? What kind of oneness is there when you talk about all this diversity that stems from Havaya? So today, I'm going to stop the sharing, but I know by now that not all of you can see anyway, but you'll have to listen in for those that can't see. The bottom line is as follows. The last few weeks we've been explaining the difference between Havaya and Elokim, the two names of God, that Havaya is one and Elokim is diversity. And today we're explaining two things. Number one, where do you think all the diversity comes from? Elokim is just a filter. Elokim is just a prison. The diversity comes from the source, from the light, from Havaya. Havaya is diverse. That was one point. Second point, Havaya creates directly higher levels of existence. Levels that are not so ego-driven, dimensions that sense source and not self. But even within that level of existence, what we call hidden worlds, guess what? It's teeming with diversity. There's diverse elements of existence in those hidden worlds. Again, all pointing us to the central question. How is Havaya Echad? How is Havaya one when it's the source of diversity in our realm and the source of the hidden worlds, which are also diverse? Even if they're under the surface, there's still diverse forms of life under the sea. There are diverse forms of life in the hidden worlds created by Havaya, which means that Havaya is also the source of diversity. So what's the difference between Havaya and Elokim? All right, so that's a discussion for today. The macrocosmic discussion, as I started today's class, we have the macrocosm and the microcosm. The macrocosm is to understand the mechanics of the universe, right? How are we being powered? What is our battery pack? Is it Elokim or Havaya? Last week we said Elokim. Today we're saying not so fast. It's Havaya. Havaya is the source of diversity, which throws into question this whole notion of God as one. So on a macrocosm we have a big question. But on the microcosm, we can also take a lesson from today's class. And what is the macrocosm of today? What is the microcosm lesson of today's class? It is quite simply this: that in life there's two ways that you and I can exist. We can exist in the revealed worlds, and we can exist in the hidden world. We can exist in a way that we feel ourselves. We can exist in a way that we sense ourselves and our needs. Primarily, we can exist in a way where we don't sense our Creator, or we can take a deep dive under the sea. We can jump under the ocean. We can put on our scuba gear. We can put on the wetsuit, right? We can put on the snorkel and the oxygen tank, and we can jump under the water. And when we do so, we can encounter a new reality, a reality in which God is real and God is truth. And this truth that we see is only true insofar as God is true. I will tell you one last detail before we close out today's session. And that is, when the Jews left Egypt, 7 days later, there's what we call the splitting of the sea. What was the splitting of the sea? The Jewish people walked through the sea on dry land. Kabbalah goes to town with this and says, what does it mean they walked through the sea on dry land? What was the miracle? What was going on? What was going on over there with the dry land and the sea? And Kabbalah says, you know what happened? It's that all of the secrets of the hidden reality, where God is true and we're only true because of God. That was what was revealed to them. They walked through the sea, meaning that hidden reality became their obvious reality. They saw the source, and they saw God, and their own reality, their own ego, was a little bit less. So, this week, a little bit of our own ego. And this is a good preparation for the upcoming holiday of Shavuot, which is the day in which we got the Torah. The greatest preparation is to let go a little bit of our ego and to embrace the source. All right, thank you very much for joining me this week for Kabbalah Coffee. Next week, we have a lot to talk about. We have a lot to continue. Next week will be the Sunday before Shavuot, so we have a lot to talk about regarding that holiday as well.
11.
And hopefully the goal is next week that we will have a more technologically perfected or smooth class, in which we can see each other and see the screen, and everything hopefully will work. Please God, we'll get our Zoom figured out, and that will work. I'm hearing, one second, Leah just told me, my wife just told me that it's not just me, it's apparently a Zoom issue that's a known issue. So in that case, I feel less guilty, so a little bit less Jewish guilt for somehow messing up on my side. It seems like there's a Zoom-wide problem of things being a little bit wonky. But thank you for sticking it out with me, or sticking with me on this morning. I hope that you enjoyed today's session. Join me same bad time, same bad channel. One more thing, tonight 7:30 p.m. Join us for a no holds barred open conversation about the Netflix series Unorthodox, which raises a lot of questions about love, marriage, intimacy within the Orthodox or the Hasidic communities. Join us tonight. No holds barred talk, moderated by my wife